at conferences, at meetups, typically you're going to have a chance to observe this dynamic where people are talking, one person's more interested in the conversation than the other, or the conversation's run its course, but one person doesn't know the conversation's run its course, and the other person's trying to get out of the conversation, but won't out and out say, okay, hey, you got to bounce. And Tim Ferriss does, on that related note, Tim Ferriss talks about a way to get out of a conversation and talk to other people by simply saying, hey, I gotta run, but are you going to be around for the rest of the conference? Love to, just continue to, meet up with you or talk to you. That way it doesn't feel like it's an ending. It's just to be continued. So there's one tip for you if you're trying to get out of a conversation or got to go to the bathroom, but are you going to be around the rest of the conference? If so, great. Let's continue to connect. But the tip I have for how to really identify if you're picking up on the cues or not from someone else is to put less emphasis on ourselves when we're talking to people and put more emphasis on the other person. And it sounds kind of obvious, but I don't think a lot of people do that. It's, I'll have, like, for example, at this past weekend, I was at the conference, and I get a decent amount of people coming up to me and talking, and I really enjoy it. But then at the end of the conference, whenever Colleen, my wife, and we actually had our daughter, a 9-month-old, with us, we were looking to leave. There was an endless line. There were a bunch of people who kept coming up. And if the people towards the end of that were picking up on my nonverbal cues, I'm starting to like wipe my face and itch and like, twitch and stuff. They would have identified, hey, I think he's needing to bounce. And I could have used that example, the tip I said earlier, hey, you can be around, but we were actually leaving for the conference. So I needed to try and end the conversation. Eventually, I kind of just had to interrupt them during their conversation with me and like, hey, I really enjoyed getting to know you, but we got to go. And so in order to hone this skill set, it's simply, in my opinion, it's simply being more self-aware. And how do we become more self-aware? Well, whenever we approach conversations with people, we have to have intention with this, put more emphasis on them than we are ourselves or the stories that we're telling. Even if we're really excited to get some message out or a background about, where we came from or a deal that we've got, still check in with them through eye contact, not necessarily like asking, hey, how you doing? You enjoying my story? But check in with them with eye contact and just notice, just mentally notice what's their interest level. Because if they're checked out, or if they're starting to twitch or sway or maybe look around the room, then hey, you might not have as receptive of an audience, so you'll need to pivot, or you'll need to change your approach, or you'll need to wrap it up. And that can tie to your bottom line as a business professional, because ultimately people remember how things end with you. And there's studies on this. There's a book, I forget the book, but they talk about a doctor who does colonoscopies, and they did studies on this. People who get colonoscopies, if you give them an intense amount of pain, like major, intense, big time pain during the middle of the colonoscopy, but then taper it off towards the end, they're going to have a better perception of the experience than if you give someone a little bit of pain towards the middle, but then just slightly more towards the end, because they're going to remember how it ended more painful than it began. And same with conversations, same with deals with your investors, same with anything that you do in business. It's a psychological not mechanism, but the psychological trait that most of us have, where we'll remember most of our experience about the end, but it's kind of tough to remember during the middle and beginning stages of stuff. It's just how it works. So when you're having a conversation with someone, check in with them, because regardless of how much rapport you built up with them from the beginning and the middle, if you're losing them towards the end, then it's going to not be as good of an experience with them.